Okay. So we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day.
Amen.
Because of our learning, we should have Beis Hamikdash immediately.
Amen.
And let's see, we're starting Mem, which is 40. I'm at base 40b. We're going to start at B'Kayin Gadol, Ayimid Makabel B'Kayreh. It's a little bit after the Gemara. It's about 8 lines from the bottom. 7. B'Kayin Gadol takes the Torah. He stands and he takes the Torah from the Sagan, who took it from the Chazan HaKnesset, took it from the Reish HaKnesset, took it from the Chazan HaKnesset. And then he takes the Torah, he's going to read from it. It says, he stands. That implies that a minute ago he was sitting. If he stands up, that means he was before sitting. That's a little problem. The master taught, you're not allowed to sit in the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash. We have a pasuk. It says, "Vayavi Melech David, vayeshel v'fnei Hashem, v'yamar mi anochi v'goyim." This is after David wants to build a Beis Hamikdash, and Navi tells him that you can't build it, but your son will build it, and your kingdom will last forever. It says, and David comes in front of Hashem. He says, "Who am I?" Which means that David is allowed to sit, but no one else is allowed to sit. So how do we answer this question? How is even a Kohen Gadol can't sit? It's only the house of David. It's only a king from the house of David. Yeah, I think the commentaries say that if you're not allowed to sit in the courtyard, so then why is the house of David allowed to sit? I think this whole rule was just made just to show the importance of the house of David. Woo. To show that the prohibition and the exclusion to the prohibition could be just to show that. Otherwise, why him yes and why everyone else no? I mean, what's the difference? Well, the answer to this is Kedam Rav Chizda Besers Nashim. Chizda answers this that we're talking about in the women's courtyard, which is not actually the Azara. That was a little bit outside the Azara. There was another big chamber that had 4 rooms in the side. That was like before the entrance, before the courtyard. Chanami Besers Nashim. So here it's talking about the Besers Nashim as well. Where did Rav Chizda say? We'll see soon. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. V'heicha kairem bay. Where would they read the Torah? Bazara. It was in the courtyard. It's already a problem. He told me before it's not in the courtyard. He told me it's in the Ezras Nashim, in the women's courtyard. Well, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov and Harabayis. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says that it's on the Harabayis. It's only on the Temple Mount. It wasn't even in the courtyard at all. That they read the Torah in the street that was in front of the gate, the water gate. Well, Amar Rav Chizda says Be'ezras Nashim. That's talking about in the Ezras Nashim. When the sages, when the first opinion said that where would they read the Torah, that's talking about what is that in reference to? Where would they read the Torah? It's just talking about in the days of Ezra. When Ezra read the Torah. When Ezra read the Torah to all the people, where was that? That was not in the Azar itself. We're answering that was in Ezras Nashim. Okay. And that was the source of Rav Chizda, and we're borrowing the answer from Rav Chizda to answer what the Kohen Gadol. Where would the Kohen Gadol be reading the Torah? It would be in Ezras Nashim. We're dealing with An Yom Kippur now, right? The Kohen Gadol is An Yom Kippur. But Kairei, what does he read? Achri Mais v'Ach Basar. He reads these two sections. One is Achri Mais, which discusses Yom Kippur, and then we jump Parshas Kedoshim and we go to Parshas Emor, and he reads where it says Ach Ba'asar, which is the holiday, the section in Parshas Emor, last week's Parsha, all the holidays. And over there, Ach Ba'asar is the holiday of Yom Kippur. Reminu, we have a contradiction. You're allowed to skip only in the prophets. In the Haftarah, you're allowed to skip, but you're not allowed to skip in the Torah itself. Here, you're reading, you're skipping a section, and you're going to another section. You're not allowed to skip. Amar Abaya like Kasha. Abaya says it's not a question. Kan b'chdesh yifsakat turgaman. Kan b'chdesh la yifsakat turgaman. It depends. They used to have a translator that would translate into Aramaic in between the verses. So if you can manage to skip, to roll it over, and the amount of time it takes the translator to translate that verse so that it's not noticed that you're going to a new place, so then that's fine. So in other words, if it's a quick roll, then you're allowed to do that. But if it's going to take more time, then yifsakat turgaman, that the translator is going to have to, there's going to be a pause between the translation and the new reading, that you're not allowed to do. So when it says that you're not allowed to skip in the Torah, that's talking about a longer pause. But this was a shorter pause.
Pause is like a disrespect of some sort.
Yeah. Well, because this is just one quick roll, maybe like 2 columns or something. That's quick. The Gemara has a question on this. Well, Tani, you can't say this because it says Medalgin Benavi. If you quote this whole thing, it says you're allowed to skip in the prophets, which we translated as a long skip. Vein Medalgin, you're not allowed to skip in the Torah. But Kama Medalgin, and when it says that you're allowed to skip in the prophets, how long can that be? Ad Kadesh Liyifsakat Turgaman. That's only the amount of time it takes. The amount of time it takes for the translator. So the whole thing, the whole permission was only in the prophets, and even in the prophets, it was only the amount of time it takes that the translator would translate. But it sounds like in the Torah, you can't skip at all. When we are allowed to skip in the prophets, and how long we are allowed to skip in the prophets, the amount of time it takes for the translator to translate, which means in the Torah, you can't skip at all. So what are you telling me, that you skip just the amount of time it takes for the translator? Michlal the B'Torah klal klal, can't skip it all. Ela Amar Abaya, rather Abaya, he goes back and he makes a new suggestion, new answer. Like Kasha, kan ben yachad, kan b'shnei inyanim. Depends. If you're skipping from topic to topic, that you're not allowed to do in the Torah. But in the prophets, that you're allowed to do. Around 41 now, yeah. V'atanya, and this was taught in a brisa. Usually v'atanya means we're asking a question. Over here, v'atanya means that, and I'll bring you proof to this. Proof is, it says medalgen b'Torah binyan echad, that you're allowed to skip if it's in the Torah scroll, only if it's the same topic, which that's what we're doing here in Yom Kippur. We're skipping from Achri Ma'is to Parshas Emor, which both of them are in the topic of Yom Kippur. And in the prophets, you're allowed to skip even if it's a different topic. But here and here, it can't be the amount of time that's going to be longer than what it takes for the translator to translate. You're not allowed to skip from one prophet, but one book of the prophets to another book of the prophets. You can't go from Yeshua to Shoftim, to Shmuel, to Malachim. When you're saying the Haftarah, you can't skip. You can't do half Haftarah from here and another half Haftarah from another book. Yeah, I'm sure Shmuel is. There's no Shmuel 1 and Shmuel 2. There's no Malachim 1 and Malachim 2. Those are all one book. And Yeshaya is, of course, one book. And yeah, what else is there that they've divided? Okay. However, you are allowed to skip from different books in the 12 minor prophets in Trei Yasser. I think we do that by Shuva Yisrael. I think we say some verses from Micha. Shuva, I think, is in Yoel, and we go to Micha. I think over there we skip from one book to another. But you're not allowed to skip backwards, you have to skip forwards. Yeah. Apparently, the book of Trey Yasser is all considered one sefer according to this. Even though they were all put together into one book, so they don't get lost, because they're so small. Some of them are 3 chapters or something. So they put it into one book. So it's like a collection of a bunch of smaller books.
This is referring to readings in public. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's talking about the Haftarahs. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now it says, it says that he rolls up the Torah, he puts it on his chest, and he makes a statement that's where he says, more than what I have read to you is written here. And then he says another paragraph by heart, which is from Parshas Pinchas. He says like the mafter. We're talking about on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol. But Kol Kach Lama, why does he have to say more than I have read is written here? He says the fact that he's closing up the Sefer Torah, not reading from it anymore, he wants to make sure that people don't think it's because it's puzzle. So really, it's kosher, but I'm just saying it by heart. Well, in that paragraph from Parshas Pinchas, which is in Chumash HaPikudim, which is in the book of Numbers, Pikudim is numbers, counted. He reads by heart. The Gemara asks, why doesn't he roll the Torah and read it from there? Amar Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Amar Rav Sheshes. Rav Huna bar Yehuda says the name of Rav Sheshes B'Shem Goylin Sefer Torah B'Tzibur, because you don't roll the Torah in public. I think it's considered like disrespect to the community. Start rolling the Torah.
What did you say? You turned to the side. I missed that.
It's disrespect for the community to roll the Torah. So why don't they bring another Sefer Torah? They should have another Sefer Torah somewhere, right? Every person has his own Sefer Torah. They just bring another Torah and they'll read from there. They don't want to bring another Sefer Torah because then it looks like there was a problem with the first Sefer Torah. We treat the Sefer Torah like as if it's a person that is going to be embarrassed. It's going to get a bad name. We're going to say you took a different one. And why do you take the other one? No, you must have not liked the first one. Maybe there was some missing letter or something. The Gemara asks a question. I'm sorry, I skipped something. That was the first answer. Because if you'd bring another Sefer Torah, you would have to say a new bracha on it, and that's not necessary. You don't want to say an unnecessary bracha. Back on Rav Huna bar Yehuda's answer, that it looks like there's a blemish in the first Sefer Torah. We are really concerned about that. Taught that Rav Rosh Chodesh Teves Cholias b'Shabbos. If Shabbos Chanukah is also Rosh Chodesh, maybe Shalish Torahs, they bring 3 Torah scrolls. One of them they read the weekly Torah portion. One of them they read from Rosh Chodesh. And one of them they read for Chanukah. 3 Torah scrolls. You said they read the Nasi, which concludes with Balaisa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they read it.
Yep.
And you see that you can take another Sefer Torah, and we're not concerned that the first Sefer Torah looks like it's puzzle. So the Gemara answers, over there, you're calling up 3 different people. 3 different people, each one reading a different Torah. So that's acceptable. Doesn't look like the first one is puzzle. We have a new person, he gets a new bracha, he gets a new Torah. However, but one person reading from 2 different Torah scrolls looks like one of them is wrong. One of them has a mistake. Why do you take out a new one? Yeah.
Is there like a concept of having like a maximum amount of Torahs in the synagogue? Like having any more is just like because I know they have like certain Sefer Torahs, like this one's for Rosh Chodesh, this one's for Haftorah, this one's for.
You've never been a Flatbush.
Guess not.
Why they have
1200.
Really? Really?
Wow.
What's the Reb Naftali? What shul had the most Sifrei Torah? It's a trivia
Oh.
question.
Aventura has 13.
13. Yitzi says they have 400 in Flatbush.
And where?
Quote me on that.
In Flatbush.
Yeah, quote me on that.
Okay. Mavarech ala Shmeina brachas. And we say on it 8 brachas. So, just talking about the service on Yom Kippur, Tana Rabbanan was taught in a Braisa, Mavarech and the brachas that he says goes like this, Ala Torah. First he says the after bracha on the Torah, which was Shenasan Lanu, Torah Semes, right? That's the bracha on the Torah. Kederach Shemavarech basic Knesset, the way you say the bracha in the shul, that's the blessing that they say. Ala Avaida, this is the bracha of Ritzei. Ala Ida, he says Maidim. Val Mechila Savan, Ketiknan. And the way the blessing of forgiveness of sins was instituted. This is the blessing of Ata B'Chatanu, which concludes, we say this on like Yom Kippur, concludes with Melech, Michael, V'Seileach, La'aveinos Hamid, Beis Yisrael, Ma'beras, Mersenum, Chol Shana V'Shana, Melech al Kol Haaretz, Kadesh Yisrael, V'Yom Kippur, something like that, right? That was the atonement of sins. Val Mekade, Val Ala Mikdash. That's another bracha that says Asher Bachar B'Mikdash. Val Kayanim. There's another bracha for the Kayanim, something similar to that. B'fnei Atzman, Al Yisrael B'fnei Atzman, which was a Beicher B'Ami Yisrael. Val Yerushalayim B'fnei Atzma. And then they would say a bracha for Yerushalayim, and he chose Yerushalayim. Yeah, Rashi in the Mishnah says that in the Yerushalmi it explains it in more detail. Yeah. Reminds me of the, I mentioned this before, Moshe Avigdor Amiel, from Midas L'Cheker Halacha, he was the rabbi in Tel Aviv. He was the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv. He wrote very interesting books. Light for an Age of Confusion. They translated it into English. Somehow he's related to the Stern family from Stern College. I think that's his daughter or something. Anyway, in one of his books, he says that the Rambam forgot 2 of the 13 principles of faith. Whoa! There's supposed to be 2 more. One is that the significance of that the land of Israel is the chosen land. The Rambam doesn't mention that. It's not one of the 13 principles. I think it should be. And that the Jewish people are the chosen people. I think that should be what Rav Amiel. That should have been in the 13 principles. Well, you have to ask Tevye, president chosen for what? Okay.
I think there was another, I forget if I remember.
Only
last.
3.
Yeah, three. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the Ikrim. The what was his name? Rabbi Yosef Elbo. It says really only 3. Yeah. Okay, Vashar Tefillah, and the rest of it he says as a prayer. In Tanur Rabbanan, Ashar Tefillah, the rest is a prayer. What is the Tefillah? It says, well, Tchina, Rina, Bakasha, Shamchi, Shel Tchichim Livasha, V'chesim B'Shemiyat Tefillah. It's this prayer, supplication, and song and request that the Jewish people need your salvation. And he concludes with the one who listens to prayer. Kan ve'elach, after this, Kol echad v'echad, maybe Sefer Torah mitech beis v'kayre bay. Everyone else would go home, get a Sefer Torah, and they would read from it. Kol kach lama, why would they do that? They would want to show, let everyone see how beautiful each of their Sefer Torah were. You know, everyone had to write their own Sefer Torah. Still do. Just not everyone does it, so we get someone else to do it.
So for on site plug.
On site, right? So, but when would they get to show it off? Now on Yom Kippur. Rashi asks they shouldn't be allowed to carry because it's Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is like Shabbos. So he gives one answer that there's an opinion that holds Yom Kippur is not like Shabbos. You're allowed to carry on Yom Kippur, according to one opinion. It's not our opinion. Other opinion is that Yerushalayim had an Erev. The doors would close at night, and Yerushalayim has an Erev, and they carried it from their house where they were staying. They would bring the Sefer Torah.
Big like we have today.
Could be.
Everyone.
Could be. Could be small, big. I don't know. Sephardic Sefer Torah, decorated. Yeah. New Mishnah. This Mishnah is a special Mishnah for this year because this is all about the mitzvah of Hakel. Rebbe made a big campaign to make gatherings the year after Shemitah, after the Shemitah year for Hakel. And the other Paiskim didn't say that. Other Rabbanim said no, there's no mention that we don't have to do anything about Hakel. The Rebbe encouraged that we should.
Why did they discourage?
There was a lot of elements of the community that didn't like any innovations. We felt that over the years we never heard that there was anything that anyone did for the Rebbe. I think besides that there's maybe halachic significance, but he also wanted to encourage anything that would bring people closer. Like the Bas Mitzvah. The Bas Mitzvah was discouraged by a lot of people, but the Rebbe encouraged it because the girl takes achlata and she teaches some Torah, and the Jewish people get together, and it's another opportunity. Bas Mitzvah doesn't have a background. Like Ramesha Feinstein says, you can't do a Bas Mitzvah in a shul. It's not like a religious event.
You also said you can eat M&Ms.
Yeah, I think that might be like a
Yeah, well, it was started by what's his name? I forgot. What was his name? It started the construction.
19th century, right?
Mordechai Kaplan, I think, was the one that started the Bas Mitzvah. Yeah, it's another opportunity. Right. Like birthdays. Right. The Rebbe encouraged birthdays also. Yeah. Okay, but I think Hakel had more of a halachic significance than just like another opportunity. Anyway, here's the background to all of that. It says, Parshas Melach Ketzad. There's a section that the king reads in public. How was this done? Well, Moitzi Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag. After the first day of the holiday of Sukkot, B'Shmini, the Gemara is going to change it, that it's not the 8th day, because you just said it's the first day. It's going to be the 8th year. B'Moitzi Shviyas, it's the year after the Shemitah. They set up a platform, a wooden platform in the courtyard. The king from the house of David is going to sit on this platform. Etc. At the end of the 7th year in the holiday, Shemitah, it goes on to say all the details. Chazan HaKnesses, which we called him the Shamish, Neitel Sefer Torah v'Neisnel Reish HaKnesses. He takes a Sefer Torah and he gives it to the Gabbai. Reish HaKnesses Neisnel Sagan. and the Gaba gives it to the Sagan, which is the deputy Kohen Gadol. Vaskan Neisel Kohen Gadol, and the deputy Kohen Gadol gives it to the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol Neisel Melech, and the Kohen Gadol gives it to the king. Vahamelech Eimedu Makabel V'Korei L'Yoshev. The king stands and he receives it and he reads it when he's sitting down. King, we learned before at the beginning that a king from the house of David is allowed to sit. Agrippas HaMelech. I would love to see what he writes about Agrippas, the historical.
Why?
Yeah, Agrippas was a descendant of Herod. This is referring to King Agrippa I, Julius Agrippa, who was the grandson of Herod. Agrippa's father was Aristobulus, the son of Herod, from his Hashmonai wife, Miriam, the daughter of Hyrcanus II. So Herod's wife was Miriam. She was a Hashmonai. And his mother was Bernice, the daughter of Herod's sister. And so I guess Aristobulus, which is Herod's son, marries his cousin, Bernice, right? The daughter of Herod's sister. He grew up in Rome. That's talking about Agrippas, in the house of the emperor. In there, he befriended the emperor's family. He was a close friend of Gaius. Was that one of the emperors? Who, upon being designated emperor, appointed Agrippa governor of a portion of Herod's kingdom. Agrippa later became one of the driving forces behind Claudius's appointment as emperor, who in turn installed him as the ruler over the rest of Herod's kingdom, including the land of Judea. On arriving in Eretz Yisrael as king, Agrippa developed a relationship with the sages of the Jewish people and publicly displayed his deep connection to them through observing the mitzvahs scrupulously. Sages praised him for this. Agrippa attempted to fortify Jerusalem by building an additional wall, which included some of the city's suburbs within the city limits. The sages regarded Herod and his household as Canaanite slaves. Agrippa's status as a member of the Jewish people was questionable. Consequently, the sages viewed the people's words stating that he was their brother as mere flattery. We're going to see that on the next page. Agrippa himself was also considered a dubious character. Oh, that's not what it sounded like before. He was raised and educated in Rome among friends who were wanton in every regard. And as king, he continued Herod's initiative of encouraging Greek culture, at least in the Gentile cities under his reign. There was a shift in there. It didn't look like that at the beginning of that paragraph. It looked like he was a good guy. Okay, let's take a look. Agrippa Samelach Ahmad V'Kibel V'Kara. He received the Torah standing, V'Kara Aymed, and he read the Torah standing. V'Shabchu Chachamim, the sages praised him. Sounds like he's a good guy. Why did he read the Torah standing? Because he wasn't a real king. Oh.
No, it looks like
That could be a Greek thing. When he came to the verse that you're not allowed to appoint on you a stranger as a king, so Zolgain of Demise, he starts to cry. Amrullah, the sages said, Altisyari Agrippas, don't worry, Achinoat, you're our brother, Achinoat, you're our brother. He said, you're fine. You're an exception. The king would read from Eila Advarim, which is Parshas Veschanan, Ad Shema and Ushma V'Hayim Shmaya. And from Shema, he would jump to V'Hayim Shmaya, I guess. Aser to Aser. And he would read Aser to Aser, which is in Parshas Ekev, I think. Then he would go to Kischal Aser, to Parshas HaMelech, go to the section about where it talks about appointing the king. All of this is in the book of Devarim. And the Brachas Uklalas. And then he would jump to Parshas Kisavai, which is where the blessings and the curses, Ad Shigem Mikol Parsha, until he would finish the whole section. Brachas Shakayin Gadol Mevarech Haisan HaMelech Mevarech Haisan. We're talking about, this is on Sukkot, first day of Chol Hamoed, right? Maybe even it sounds like it's at night, but it's probably the first day of Chol Hamoed. And he would read over there all these sections of Sefer Dvarim. And then he would say these blessings. The only difference is between the blessings, al shenaisin shel regalim tachas mechilas and he would say makadesh Yisrael v'azmanim because it's sukkos instead of the blessing that the Kohen Gadol said on Yom Kippur, which was melach meichel v'seleach la'avenas am beis Yisrael, the king that forgives. It wasn't the time of forgiveness now, so he would skip that bracha and then replace it with makadesh Yisrael v'azmanim, sanctifies Israel in the times. Gemara starts off with B'shmini sal kedaita. What do you think? This is going to be on the 8th day of Sukkot. He's told me it's on the first, it's right after the first day. It's the 2nd day of Sukkot. Ema b'shminis, rather say it means it's in the 8th year. Cholani lamali. Why does the Torah need to tell me that it's at the end of the 7th year? It's in the holiday. It's in the Shemitah year. It's after the Shemitah year. Goes like this. It's necessary. Who would just say at the end of the 7th year, Havamina nimnu mehashta. Afagav b'lemisram shmita. Even though we didn't have a shmita. So 1 second. I would think that you would start this even before they came into the land. The cycle of shmitas only started after they conquered and divided the land, which is 14 years later. In this section in the Torah that says that the king is supposed to do this was said when they were still in the plains of Moab, before they even crossed over into Israel. I could have thought that you start counting from then 7 years. You started already then. So it has to tell me, Kasar Rachmana b'Shmita, so it says only after the Shemitah cycle. Kasar Rachmana b'Shmita, if it says Shemitah, Avamina b'Seif Shemitah, I would have thought it means at the end of the Shemitah year. Before the 8th year, I would thought it's in the 7th year. Because Rachmana b'Mayed, it says no, it needs to be in the holiday. Because Rachmana b'Mayed, if it would have been in the holiday, Havamina Reishat, they would have thought it's Rosh Hashanah. Because Rachmana b'Chag HaSukkos, so it has to tell me it's Chag HaSukkos. So we're getting Ikas Rachmana b'Chag HaSukkos, Havamina Fil Yom Tov V'Racha, and I could have thought maybe it's on the last days of Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres. Because Rachmana b'Kol Yisrael, at the time when everyone comes, which is Ne'aschalta d'Mayed at the beginning of the holiday. Rashi says, why don't they do it on the first day? Well, you're not allowed to build this platform on Yom Tov. Well, why don't they build it before Yom Tov? It would have been too tight in the Azara to have this platform. So over Yom Tov, they don't build it. They just put it up right after Yom Tov, and then they can take it down. It would be too difficult to have it up the whole time. There's a platform for the king to stand on. Everyone would come, men, women, and children.
It would be in the temple courtyard.
Yeah. Well, we learned from Rav Chisda that it would be in the Ezras Nashim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, the outer.
But no, we also learned that it wasn't in the Ezras Nashim. That was the Kohen Gadol was in the Ezras Nashim. The king himself was able to sit in the Azara. By the king, it could have been in the Azara. It was in the Azara. Yeah, but this. What does it say? The king was not in the women's courtyard, was it? The king was in the. Oh, it's in the women's courtyard. But in the women's courtyard, I thought they're allowed to sit anyway.
But here it's not specifying like from the house of David. It just says.
Oh. What does it say over there? Does it say was it this read in the women's courtyard or in the courtyard?
Oh, sorry.
I'm on.
Okay, we have our researchers looking it up.
Deep research.
Okay.
Well, I would think in order to hear the king, you would have to be in the same vicinity.
Right, but he was on a tall platform. Could be, megaphones.
Yeah, those big doors,
Right.
walls.
Right.
Excuse me, all these references to Melech David, who was allowed to sit, does that relate to the discussion in the Maisa and Sanhedrin? The Melech refused to stand in front of the Beis Din, and therefore there is a blanket exception for his
I'm not sure.
progeny.
I'm not sure. It's specific about the Beis Hamikdash, who's allowed to sit there. So it's related to Yeravam. Yeravam refused to allow people to go to the Beis Hamikdash. He didn't want people to see that he's not a king, and David is a real king, and
Mhm.
the descendants of David, which would be in those days, Rechavam was the real king.
Says that the non-Davidic kings would sit in the women's court.
Okay, non-Davidic kings would sit in the women's courtyard, and probably Davidic kings would be in the Azara. Okay. The Chazan HaKnesses Neitel Sefer. Yeah, you get a trophy. Take the rest of the day off. Chazan HaKnesses Neitel Sefer Torah v'Neis L'Reish HaKnesses. The Shamish gives it to the Gabbai. Shamet Mina, we learned from this that Cholkin covered the Talmud Makam Arab. Look who we're giving the honor to first. Before we give it to the one on top of him, we give it to the one younger, or to the lesser important. Where it says, it's obviously you learn from this that you're allowed to give respect to a student even when the teacher's there. Amar Abaya says, no. Kulam Mishum Kvaida de Melech. This is a way of showing honor to the king. When you pass it, it goes higher and higher and higher till it goes up to the king. That's a way of showing respect. The kings would take it standing, and then they would sit, and they would read it to Sefer Torah sitting. Agrippas did it standing. Oimid, Michlal, the Yoshev. The king would stand, and he would receive it. Obviously, he was sitting before. So the Gemara tells us that it was in the women's courtyard. And again, I guess that's only for the non-Davidic kings. Okay. Yeah, not as the sanctified. The sages praised him for standing when he read. If they praised him, probably he did the right thing. Amar Ravashi, the problem is, Ravashi says, even according to the opinion that says that a nasi, a prince, the head of a tribe, is allowed to forgo his honor. But a king over the whole nation is not allowed to forgo on his honor. He has to demand his honor. So how is he allowed to? He has to keep his own the rules of the king, which is that he's supposed to be sitting, and he stood. It says mitzvah shiny. When it's a mitzvah, it's different. He's allowed to forgo his honor for a mitzvah. Okay. So it sounds like he's a good king. When it comes to the verse that says that, did I see somewhere that that he changed? Originally he was good, and a while later he became bad. I'm not sure where I saw that. That both of those are accurate, but it depends on which part of his life. When he came to the verse that says you're not allowed to instate a king that's not from the house of David, Tana Mishmeder of Nassan was taught in the name of Nassan. But at that time, when they told him that, oh, don't worry, you're our brother, the Jewish people were deserving of destruction. Over here it says the enemies of the Jews, but that's a euphemism. It means the Jewish people. Because they flattered Agrippas. We're here till the end is going to talk about flattery, that it's not a good thing. It's not good to flatter when it's not sincere. Amar Rab Shimon ben Chalaf Timyem Shegavar Agrippa Shel Chanufa. Sounds like Agrippas, but it says when the fist of flattery, the power of flattery, came into the world, Nisabsa Hadinim, law became corrupt, and Niskalkala Maisim, and actions were ruined because people would do things and they weren't criticized because everyone's flattering each other. And no one can say to his friend that what I do is greater than what you do, because because nothing was sincere. What does it mean? What I really would say, what I do is greater than you. It's really say what you do is greater than I do.
What day does flattery come in?
It doesn't tell us which when that was. How do they translate? No one can tell his friend, my actions are greater than yours. What do they? How do they explain that?
The leader does not protest against the sinners. The masses in subsequent generations learn the evil ways of the sinners. Eventually, leading all people to sin. Then no one can say anymore that he's better than anyone else.
No, because everyone is sinning, which basically means that there is such a decline in morality. Well, Darash Rab Yehuda Bar Marav Avitim Rishim Ben Pazi Mutalahachnef L'Risham Be'Lamase. We have a little twist on this. Some say that you are allowed to flatter the wicked people in this world. Shenemar Le'Yikariod L'Novel Nadiv. You can't call the disgusting person generous, or L'Kile, and to the stingy person L'Yomer Shua. You can't say that he's noble. That's in the future. You won't do that. But nowadays you are allowed to. Who is that? Meiri. Oh. Only provided it doesn't involve desecration of God's name. Wow. Rabbi Yaina says over there that you're not allowed to flatter a wicked person, even if it's a life-threatening situation.
No, that's the exception.
He says it's an exception, or even if.
It's from their show that it's permitted to flatter a wicked person.
Go further.
But
Rabbi
it is
Yaina.
prohibited to praise a first person with deeds unless it can prevent the situation. That's from the Torah.
Oh, unless it can prevent the life-threatening situation.
Well,
That's what Rabbi Yaina says. That's what Rabbi.
no, it's in the Torah.
No, read Rabbi Yaina.
Yeah, Rabbeinu Yonah rules stringently in this matter and forbids flattering the wicked situation.
Even in a life-threatening situation.
So you're allowed to flatter your wife?
Yeah, that sounds like a life-threatening situation. Okay. Was that thing that you sent? You're sleeping in the sukkah. So, okay. Very interesting source that Yaakov tells Esav, seeing you is like seeing the face of God.
Yeah. Wow.
I was appeased.
Yeah.
Pliga de Rab Levi. The way that what we're getting from Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Rish Lakish, that Yaakov flattered Esav. This argues with what Reb Levi says, because Reb Levi said, Mashal shel Yaakov Esav l'mad davadaima. I'll give you an example. What is it comparable to Yaakov and Esav? Someone invites his friend over, and then he realizes that the guy wants to kill him. Amar Lai, he says to him, Tam tav shel zeh, the taste that I guess he got invited over to the guy's house, but the host, I guess, is gonna kill him. So Tam tav shel zeh shani tayim ketav shel shetam beis hamelech. This tastes exactly like the food that I had when I was by the king. And then the person hears that, Amar Yadalei Lamalka, the king knows this person, Mistafe Velekatale. Now I'm afraid of killing him. He's gonna ask for him, he's gonna find out, I'm gonna get into big trouble. So when Yaakov meets Esav, he says, seeing you is like seeing the face of God, the face of an angel. So Esav is like, oh my gosh, he knows angels. Oh, okay, I'm gonna be careful.
Your angel.
Not because
I beat up your angel.
Right. So not because he was flattering. Amra Belazar, it's about who you know, right?
Yeah.
Maybe afla ilam. Anyone that flatters brings anger into the world. Shnemar, the chanfei leiv yasimu af. Those that have flatter heart, they place anger. And their prayer is not heard. Shnemar lo yishavu ki asram. they won't be saved because they'll have suffering. They won't. What they call out won't be heard. Let's leave it over here. Woo! Okay. Have a happy, meaningful Lag Baimer.
I mean.